Hey, welcome back. Today we're gonna redo a review of the Watersnake trolling motor. And so it's been about a year and 3 months that I've had this. I got it from Strongman Outdoors LLC. The company is based in Pensacola, Florida. I'll link the storefront down below. The owner is Dan. Very cool guy. If I have a chance to do business with him, I would. But I think going forward, I know enough about these things now to make my own, trolling motor. Well, not really make it, but modify it so that it would work with what I have for my setup. So the reason why I have this all apart is because this switch, this toggle switch, on and off toggle switch that was in here kept on burning out. So I went through about 5 of these. And then finally I told, 2 about it. And 2 recommended me to build a PWM. And as you can see, that's the PWM right there, connected to the battery and then the motor. So when this kept on burning out, I tried 30 amp, 25 amp, 20 amp, doesn't matter, kept on burning out. And every time I turn on the motor, I would see sparks through the plastic housing, the red plastic housing. I would see like sparks, light and sparks. So I know that it was causing a lot of heat. And so when I run the motor for a long period of time, it would actually melt the plastic housing. And inside, I'll show you the inside. This is what it looks like on the inside right there. Okay, and I gutted it, and these wires used to belong in there. And so because I kept burning it out, I wanted it something that was more stable, something that it wouldn't leave me stranded, when I'm like 4 or 5 miles from the launch area, which has happened 2 to 3 times within the last 2 months. So 2 finally recommended the PWM. I built it, and we're gonna test it out. But before I get into that, I also want to show you guys the costs and basically a brief summary of how I built it. So basically the brain of it, all the speed control, is the PWM itself. That's the blue thing inside the enclosure. And then it has this knob that controls the speed that comes with it, and also the on and off switch. So that PWM was about 65 bucks, including tax. This enclosure I got from Daiso was $1.75 with tax. It was like $1.89 or something like that. And then you'll see that this is mounted, bolted in. This is actually the mount for the fish finder, but instead I used it for this. And the other end of it was attached to the kayak. So these wires, they are 10 AWG wires, 10 gauge. These plugs, they're like the Andersons. They're very good. I actually like it. They click in when you push them together. They're about 10 bucks for 4 of these. The 10 gauge wires, they're about 18 bucks for 10 feet. Okay. These wires actually came with the motor. Okay. So you'll see that I've cut off that from the motor. This is the negative motor, positive motor cable. This is the ground, which used to go into the speed switch, but I taped it off, and the negative and positive cable, I soldered it using a solder, and I soldered the connections, and then I electrical taped it, okay, just to make sure that if it's not a solid connection, at least the sparks will melt the electrical tape and stay within inside. But so far so good. I didn't notice any heat or sparks, so that's a good sign. The housing, toggle switch housing, I drilled 2 holes, just big enough so that I can squeeze the 10 gauge cables through. That way it kind of keeps, you know, helps keeping like water, not really water. I mean, if this was to, you know, go underwater, of course it's not gonna keep away water, but at least it'll help a little bit, right? So that's how I did that. Yeah, so I had this motor for about a year and a month, and then that's when the toggle switch started dying out on me. So I kept on ordering new ones from eBay, Amazon, and trying out different brands, different amps, and it was still kept on burning out. And I could not order the original part, which was from Watersnake. I didn't know the part number, and neither did Dan. But Dan gave me the number to contact Watersnake, which I never called. So I went Tu's route. Tu's recommendation was building that PWM. All right, well, we're gonna do the test, and then we'll see how it goes. But yeah, every single connection that you see here is soldered, except the screws. Where the screws go into, I didn't solder the screws and the connection there. But the connectors, this is what the connectors look like. They were soldered onto the 10 gauge cables, and then I crimped it, okay? So these are like $5 at Home Depot, but the total cost that it costed me to build a PWM, the enclosure, the mount, the plugs, the wires and everything, it was a little over $100. So I'm not sure if it's going to be worth it, because a brand new 24 pound thrust Watersnake motor is about $150 on Amazon. The only thing is you got to cut the shaft and modify it so that it would you know, fit the clamp, okay? And this was also purchased from Strongman Outdoors LLC. So this is separately, this by itself is about $100, but since he sells the whole thing together that's already modified, I paid $330 on Marketplace. So let's test to see if this works, and then we'll test it out in the waters. So this is forward. And then I want to make sure that the propeller is not touching anything. Otherwise, I'll be chopping things off or damaging the propellers. So this knob is currently all the way off, but if I was to turn it on, it should start. Okay. So you can see it's kind of going slow because I have it on slow speed. But I'm going to go ahead and speed this up right now. Okay, so this is currently about 60% power. I do not want to go full power because it's just really not recommended. Things get really hot, and so I'm only going to stick with about 60 to 70% power, and we're going to go and test the speed of this speed, And then we're also going to see how long this would last on the waters with this running continuously. And yeah, so we're gonna see a few things, right? We're gonna accomplish a few things. We're gonna see if this thing burns out, of course, and if it does, I have until January 31st to return it. Currently it's mid-December. If this doesn't work out, I have to revert back. I have to put everything back and order the right toggle switch from Watersnake itself. But I don't want to go this way because with this, I can actually control the speed of my kayak trolling. And you know how like some boats, what they do is they put a bucket behind them so that they control slower. You know, they want to troll at 1 or 2 miles per hour, and that way, you know, it's more enticing for the fishes to bite. So far, so good. I don't feel any heat here. Okay. Everything is soldered. Every single connection, like these connections here, they have these little metal like plugs similar to this, and I soldered that too onto the wire, and then I electrical taped it, and then I shoved it in there, pushed it in so that it clicks in. Okay, did same thing for both sides. So every single connection is solid, should be tight, and should not create any sparks. But if it does, it's got that layer of electrical tape to melt, or to you know, at least it doesn't melt the plugs, because that has happened before. Talking about melting, so these cables were from an electrical charger, not related to any of this. This was way back when I had my RC, you know, remote control car stuff. And anyway, so I cut it out because I don't play with those anymore. So I cut this thing out as a test, and this thing lit on fire, literally lit on fire and melted, as you can see. So yeah, dangerous stuff if you don't know what you're doing. But it's I would say the difficulty to build all this is fairly easy. You know, think of it this way: if I can do it, a monkey can do it. So I'm sure you guys can do it better than me. That seems to be going pretty good so far, going at 60% power. I don't feel any heat there. There are some holes for the PWM to vent the warm air out. So the only hard part for this enclosure was getting that switch to fit in snugly and tight. Okay, this knob, you just pull it right off. Thanks again too for giving me that suggestion. Was that I didn't know whether this was twist off or pull off, and so yeah, this thing comes right off, and then there's a shaft inside, and then there's a screw, like a washer screw inside. Unscrew that, drill a hole through that, put the shaft through, screw the washer screw back on, and then push this back on, and you'll have that. So yeah, so I think that's a full rundown. I'm not sure if I missed anything else, but yeah, all in all, it was about 115 bucks, I believe, for all the materials, all the parts, all the things to build this. So I'm gonna put everything back together. This little vise thing was very helpful. I used it to clamp these things onto here, and then I had it held the stuff for me to solder, so that was very helpful. You don't have to get a nice soldering iron like I did. I got this, gosh, maybe about 10 years or so ago, back when it was about $100. I was doing a lot of soldering work back then. So now I think they go for like $200 or $300 or $400 on eBay or Amazon. This is the analog version. They have the electrical, the digital one that is cheaper. But yeah, for some reason the analog one is more expensive. But yeah, after over 10 years, this thing still works great. Let's see, what else did I not cover? Yeah, pretty much everything else I covered. So let's test it out in the water. So speedometer is the name of the app, and we are going 3 miles per hour. But yeah, so yeah, I guess the outro is that according to speedometer, I did reset the mileage to 0 when I first opened it up today. So I have traveled today 19.8 miles. 19.8 miles. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but 19.8 miles today. Okay. It just turned to 19.9, but yeah, basically what I did was I trolled along the jetty for like, I don't know, 3-4 hours, going about 2 to 3 miles per hour, and then after that I went outside the harbor. I trolled all the way, well, headed towards Catalina Island, but not quite close. So I went out there for about 5-6 miles towards Catalina. As you guys saw, I saw sunfish, you guys saw dolphins, things like that. Yeah, I just couldn't catch a fish to save my life today. If you guys want to stick around, I'll include the footage of the sunfish and the dolphins here at the end. Thanks for watching.